Today on Week in Review, the BC provincial election now has new representatives from the Northwest. The Northwest also has the highest rate of drug use in the province, and Terrace now has a more consistent path from the bench to downtown. Hello and thank you for joining us here on A Week in Review, where we recap all the news happening in the Northwest. We begin this week with last week's preview of the provincial election here in BC, where there were a number of candidates in riding for the Northwest. Here are the candidates that went head-to-head last Saturday.
We are now a mere double digits in hours away from the final votes being tallied in the BC provincial election. And according to BC Elections, the province set record highs on the advanced voting day on Wednesday with just about 223,000 votes. Headlined by the NDP's David Eby, Conservatives' John Rustad, and Green Party Sonia Furstenau. According to Thursday night reports, just 48 hours before the election cutoff, it remains a tight race between Eby and Rustad. And representing the Northwest for the NDP includes Nathan Cullen for Bulkley Valley and Stikine, Sarah Zimmerman for Skeena, and Tamara Davidson for the North Coast and Haida Gwaii. In their campaign, the NDP is looking to continue investing in healthcare, infrastructure, and according to Zimmerman, the NDP has done their job at keeping the economy afloat.
And I think that it's a bit of a misnomer that the economy isn't doing well here. Last year, we've seen some of the strongest private sector job growth in Canada, in British Columbia.
The Conservatives, represented by Sharon Hartwell in the Bulkley Valley, Claire Rattay for Skeena, and Chris Sankey for the North Coast and Haida Gwaii, look to drive investment into small businesses, reducing payroll tax, and creating a smaller government.
It's not about looking at ways to cut back on services. It's about finding ways to drive more investment, to allow the private sector to do what it does best, to encourage investment specifically in areas like ours.
And finally, for the Christian Heritage Party, Rod Taylor in the Bulkley Valley and Erwin Jeffrey in Skeena are looking to promote pro-life, pro-family, and pro-freedom.
The CHP, or the Christian Heritage Party, advocates revoking Bill 36. Doctors and nurses who were first lauded as frontline heroes, but subsequently fired for not submitting to an experimental gene therapy, need to be hired and compensated.
Now, BC citizens have until 4 p.m. on Saturday until all the tallies will be finished. From Terrace, I'm Damian Smith. Elections BC also said that an estimated 54.7% of registered voters cast ballots in the provincial election, which is up from the below 54% in the previous election of 2020. With nearly 2,038,000 ballots cast, Elections BC says it's the highest tally count in the province's history, and it was also the first time that electronic tabulators were used in a general election in the province. Elections BC says that 85% of results had been reported by 9 p.m. on election night, compared with 13.5% of the results at the same time with the manual counting from BC's election back in 2017. Now, despite the provincial election currently in the middle of a recount as we speak, we do know who will be representing the three regions here in the Northwest. Jaylee Matthews from CFTK has the latest.
It was a tight race that will result in some significant changes across the Northwest. In the Skeena, it was Claire Rattay of the Conservative Party taking 51% of the vote.
I just want to say thank you to everybody that supported me and put their faith in me. It means the world to me, and I'm excited to get to work. I want to congratulate the other candidates on doing a great job, specifically Sarah. I think that she, ran a really good campaign, and I wish her all the best. And yeah, thank you. Can't wait to get to work.
Zimmerman says that although they didn't win the race, she's proud of the work put in.
I think the first thing I'm super proud of is all the people that came together to work on this campaign, and I'm really proud of the team that we had, the volunteers that we had, and I'm grateful to the people who participated in this vote. And I think the biggest thing that I would like to see in the future is more people get to the polls.
In the North Coast riding, the NDP dominated with 64.9% of the vote going to candidate Tamara Davidson, edging out Conservative candidate Chris Sankey.
Here on the North Coast, we ran our campaign on inspiring people, that together we can make life better for people here. I am proud our communities have proven that once again in overcoming challenges, that we face, this is a place where people support people despite cultures and communities.
And in the Bulkley Valley-Stikine district, after 4 terms as an NDP riding, elected a Conservative candidate. Sharon Hartwell took 52.4% of the vote, making her the new MLA for Bulkley Valley-Stikine.
Well, I'm pretty excited to be able to have a voice for Bulkley Valley-Stikine. I've spent 20 years in local government and 12 years as mayor, so getting back in is pretty exciting. There was a big need for change that people were asking for, and I was happy to be the face of that change. We had an incredible team on the ground working with us, so I'm just happy at the result.
Just get into it, and I really hope that you guys will stay behind me, hold me accountable, stay in touch with me. I hope I can make you proud. Thank you. Thank you.
For CFTK News, I'm Jaylene Matthews.
Now, the Terrace RCMP just released their Halloween tips for safety this week, which is just 1 week from now. And as for costumes, they recommend that children wear visible costumes using reflective tape, as well as wearing masks that are visible and don't restrict vision. Socially, they recommend adults check treats beforehand and to travel in groups as well. And finally, for drivers to use extra caution for trick-or-treaters, especially when backing out of driveways. And as the election results remain uncertain, the NDP and BC Conservatives were seeking to reach out to the Greens for their support. Now, there is a good chance we'll have a minority government, putting the Greens in a powerful position, and CTV's Rob Buffum reports on what the Greens are revealing about their future.
BC Green Party leader Sonia Furstenau and its 2 new MLA-elects met the media for the first time since Saturday's election. Furstenau says she spoke this morning to NDP leader David Eby, but not yet to BC Conservatives John Rustad.
There have been statements made by Conservative candidates that are truly disturbing, racist, dehumanizing, homophobic, and conspiratorial. Some of these candidates have been elected, and I have yet to see a satisfactory response from John Rustad around this.
I called her twice yesterday. I called her once in early afternoon, left a message and my number. I called her again last night about 6 hours later, and she didn't pick up. So hopefully I'll be able to get an opportunity to connect with her at some point here.
Subject to recounts and mail-in ballots, the Greens hold the balance of power. Furstenau, spearheading negotiations, clearly seem partial to supporting the NDP despite campaign attacks.
If I were to take everything personally that's ever been said about me, I would be incapacitated.
As for the Conservatives,
it's John Rustad's responsibility now to ensure that his caucus understands the seriousness of the burden of being an elected representative.
The voters have spoken in terms of electing people, and that's, ultimately you either believe in democracy or you don't. I believe in democracy, and the voters had an opportunity to have a say.
Furstenau was tight-lipped about timing for any deal, what promises were needed to secure Green support for either party, other than citing the Greens platform.
We're open to having discussions, and I very much look forward to it.
She has no plans to step down as leader and will help guide the newbie MLAs, both suddenly thrust into the epicenter of the wild world of BC politics.
My shoulders aren't sinking yet, so I'm really looking forward to this, and I feel very comfortable with where we're at.
There's lots of work to do to prepare for that weight to fully land in the next few days.
A few days and likely weeks that will see more seismic shifts in this drama unfold.
Well, the Terrace RCMP also revealed what went on with them during the first half or so of October, as written in their weekly update. One incident saw some officers conducting traffic enforcement in a school zone where they noticed a Ford Mustang traveling in the area quicker than normal. And once the vehicle was pulled over, they learned it was traveling around 70 kilometers per hour through 2 different school zones. The driver did not have a valid BC license either, so their ticket amount shot to over $500. And another incident in the report noted that other officers pulled over a vehicle as part of a traffic stop, and after noticing drug paraphernalia inside of it, the driver was arrested, and further searching found items consistent with drug trafficking, which led to a CDSA investigation being started up. Up next, we hear from the candidates running for election from the Bulkley Valley. Welcome back. Well, as we part with a longtime, well-known politician in the Northwest, former MP and now former MLA Nathan Cullen says he's both disappointed and surprised with the outcome. Here's Jaylene Matthews with more information.
Nathan Cullen says his election loss wasn't for lack of trying, saying that of the 7 elections he's been in, he believes this campaign was one of the best ones he's run in terms of reach and volunteers. Cullen says, however, that there was obviously a mood for change.
There was a palpable pent-up frustration over some things. And I also think, to be fair, there was a lot of anger, right? And we saw that early on. Our signs were just getting destroyed like never before. We had that horrible episode with a sign on the highway where someone put up a hanging noose of me. And I talked to a lot of folks in the last couple of days, particularly in First Nations communities, that felt almost intimidated to vote. And that worries me a little bit. Like online, oh my gosh, like the rhetoric was violent sometimes. Not just like, we don't like your government, or Nathan, we don't like you. It was the next level. And I think we should really pay attention to that. And all parties should push away from that.
Cullen says this trend towards violence will have consequences.
One is, who's going to run for office? Second, what kind of government are you going to get? If it's just if it's that kind of rage or the meanness, like I don't mind debate. I don't mind people disagreeing, even really strongly. I think that's healthy. It's when it crosses over into that other place. I think it's worthwhile, all of us, whatever your political persuasion, of pushing back and calming things down and not making everything so personal.
For CFTK News, I'm Jaylene Matthews.
And at Terrace's Skeena Mall this Friday, the local RCMP held an event meant to help families get prepared if they ever need to quickly get access to the information of their young children. Between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m., the RCMP offered child identification kits, which are items given to families that can be used to store information like their kid's blood type, their fingerprints, a hair sample, and even potentially a photo if the need arises. Once these kits are filled out with all the possible information, parents or authorities have a way to quickly find crucial information about their kids in time-urgent situations. The kits are free and they could either be picked up for later use or be filled out when the parents arrive. Now, after 4 terms as an NDP riding, the BC's largest and least populated riding has sided with the Conservatives. Once again, here's Jaylene Matthews with more from the Bulkley Valley Stikeen's new MLA.
Newly elected MLA for Bulkley Valley Stikeen, Sharon Hartwell, says she believes the economy was a driving factor in her longtime orange riding turning blue.
Well, from what we're hearing on the ground, it was the economy, it was healthcare, a lot of seniors issues. You're looking for a long-term care building in Smithers, another one, and even across the north when we drove up to Dease Lake and stopped at Iskoden and Stewart. I mean, they have facilities there, but they're completely understaffed. They're bringing people in from the lower mainland on a temporary basis. So, you know, there's lots that needs to be done to sort of get back to the way things were, fully staffed or at least some staff. And these are isolated communities that need help.
Hartwell says she hopes folks won't be preoccupied by which party she represents, as she plans to work for everyone.
Whether they're NDP or they're not NDP. To me, it's just about making communities better. So, I mean, you're going to have to evaluate and work together, no matter what those issues are on the ground. I mean, when you're in local government, you're apolitical, so you're speaking for the people, which is a little bit easier maybe. But, you know, Mr. Rustad has given us the opportunity to be able to, you know, go over those bridges and break them down and have those wholesome discussions with whomever. And we're just looking forward to moving ahead and working for everybody in Bulkley Valley Stikeen. And, you know, like I said earlier, I mean, for me, this isn't about Nathan Cullen or myself. This is about the people in the riding that are asking for help and for change. So I'm happy to serve in whatever capacity that's going to look at going forward.
For CFTK News, I'm Jaylene Matthews.
BC NDP leader David Eby says litigation that was brought against the tobacco industry nearly 2 decades ago may finally come to an end with settlements for people in provinces across Canada, including BC. His comments come after 3 tobacco giants have proposed to pay close to $25 billion to provinces and territories, over $4 billion to tens of thousands of Quebec smokers and their loved ones. The proposed plan of arrangement, which was developed through mediation, was filed in an Ontario court yesterday after the companies JTI McDonald Corporation, Rothmans Benson and Hedges, and Imperial Tobacco Canada Limited spent more than 5 years in the negotiation with their creditors. Eby says the settlement won't bring back, but similar to the lawsuit against opioid manufacturers, it was potential to mitigate harms. After the break, the Northwest remains as one of the highest affected areas by drug use. Welcome back. Well, later on Tuesday night, a plane was required to make an emergency landing directly on Highway 16, not too far away from Telkwa. This need for the emergency landing was initially received by the Smithers RCMP, notifying them that a Cessna plane was dealing with some mechanical issues and needed to get on the ground as soon as possible. The plane was able to make the landing without any further problems, and afterwards, an assessment was conducted by the Ministry of Transportation, Highways and Infrastructure, and they found that there were no other injuries caused by the incident, nor was any nearby property damaged either. However, Transport Canada is set to conduct its own investigation so that they can find out what problems led to the plane having to make a sudden landing. Now, new stats on unregulated drug deaths have been recently publicized by the BC Coroner Service, as BC has seen an 8% decrease in the number of toxic drug deaths in 2024 compared to the first 9 months of the previous year. However, Northern Health is still one of the most affected regions in the entire province, and here's CFTK's Jaylene Matthews with some of the information on those stats.
Unregulated toxic drugs killed 187 British Columbians in August and 183 in September, according to the BC Coroner Service. In both August and September, approximately 6 people died each day in BC from suspected unregulated drugs. Northern Health has the highest toxic drug death rate of the regions at 70 deaths per 100,000. That's compared to the provincial average of 41 deaths per 100,000 individuals in 2024. In Terrace, unregulated toxic drug deaths continue to climb year over year. In 2016, we saw 4 toxic drug deaths in a year, and now in 2024, that number is at 23 deaths due to illicit drugs in just the first 9 months of the year. The toxic drug death rate in Terrace is over 3 times the rate it is in Smithers and nearly 3 times the rate of Kitimat's. Terrace also has the worst drug death rate of any community in the north by a long shot. The rate in Terrace is currently 150 deaths per 100,000, and the next highest in the north is Prince George with 114 deaths per 100,000. Across BC, fentanyl is still the drug most commonly involved. In 2014, fentanyl was involved in 24.6% of unregulated drug deaths in BC. That number spiked to the 80% range in 2017 and has remained there, with fentanyl detected in 84% of unregulated drug deaths in BC in 2023. The rate of female deaths across BC has also increased year over year. In 2024, the rate of death among women due to illicit drugs is 60% higher than in 2020. And of all the province, female illicit drug deaths are the worst in the Northern Health region at 51 per 100,000. The next highest is the Island Health Authority at 30 per 100,000. For CFTK News, I'm Jaylene Matthews.
Now, a BC court has reduced the prison sentence of a man who had fired at least 19 shots in an RCMP detachment in November of 2021, which narrowly missed the officers inside. The decision from the BC Court of Appeals says the previous sentence, 10 years in prison, did not fully take into account Paul Nicholas Russell's mental health illness at the time of the shooting in Vanderhoof, and Russell was convicted last year of firearm offenses and fleeing police, but he was acquitted of attempted murder. The appeal court has cut his prison sentence to 5 years. Still to come, Terrace now has a more viable way to get from the bench to downtown and not by car. As part of their wastewater treatment pilot project, the City of Prince Rupert received an award from the Environmental Operation Certification Program, and this project was designed to employ a biofilter-used wetland system through vegetation and soil, and is now on the detailed design phase and will be eventually put into place at Moresby Park, just near Park Avenue. Now in Terrace, commuters who don't want to use cars when traveling in between the bench and downtown will now have an alternate way to do so. And I got a chance to stop by to check out the landscape.
Sometime in October. And now finish the new trails.
Well, citizens in Terrace between the bench and downtown will now have better access with 2 new trails being built.
The City of Terrace announced yesterday that the new stairs made from wood and stone will be built on the Pump House Trail, as well as a softer and more consistent terrain is being put on the Viewpoint Trail. Now, originally put under construction back in the middle of July, it was reported by Mayor Sean Bouillatosh at the time that construction would be completed sometime in October. And now finished, the new trails will now give a more comfortable trek, whether going up or down. And the Viewpoint Trail now has a softer terrain, while the more steep Pump House Trail sees rows of stairs made for a more consistent walk, as this trail is known to be quite steep for walkers.
Now, this trail was actually proposed back in 2009, where eventually it took 13 years for the grant to be officially awarded to the City of Terrace. And here we are 2 years later with 2 new trails being built. From CFTK, I'm Damian Smith. Now, in the later part of last week, the roundabout located at the intersection of the local highways 16 and 37, that is also a connector between Thornhill and Terrace, was home to yet another traffic incident. Like earlier this year, back in April, the roundabout saw a commercial truck whose load was a big amount of mixed garbage suffer a rollover while trying to get through the roundabout. But luckily, the garbage was able to get quickly cleaned up that very same afternoon. And according to a later statement by the Ministry of Transportation, the garbage was not hazardous to the public in any way, so there shouldn't be any ultra harmful lingering effects outside of the area. Now, just this past weekend, Terrace resident Jenna Smith just finished her second career run at the World Triathlon over in Andalusia, Spain. On Thursday, October 17th, she ran in the female age 30 to 34 race, where she finished at a total time at 1 hour and 36 minutes. And she also ran in the mixed relay for ages 30 to 39, where her team finished with a 1 hour and 51 minute finish. This is the second time Smith has participated in this event, with the last one being last year in Hamburg, Germany. That'll be all for tonight's cast. Thank you very much for tuning in, and make sure to tune in on Monday for your daily newscast at 5, 6, and 11 o'clock here on CFTK-TV. Thank you very much for tuning in, and good night.